And happy podcasting day, everybody. Gentlemen, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I mean, I'm happy. Ross is back. Ross, welcome back to the podcast. I mean, we missed you, but we appreciate Bird stepping in for you while you were out.
I was on strike. Thanks for the pay raise.
It was a contract dispute, and you know, as management, we had to play rough.
But, a little bit of hardball.
But we're lucky, you know. The check cleared. You know, Tony received the funds, and you know, the transfer went through, and we're happy to have you back.
Yeah. Thanks. Happy to be back. I don't want you to feel like the offense has to run through me just because of my new contract.
It's good to have you back, but I honestly miss Bird already too.
So here
I like this Bird.
Funny thing, when I wasn't paying enough attention, it wasn't identical, but because Zeb's voice and Ross's voice is so distinct, I was like, wait, who's talking? Okay, that's right. I know who's talking right now. For all these years of podcasting, we're in year 7. We've been doing like 20 a year. It was something to get used to, especially back-to-back weeks of having a different person on the podcast. But, you know, we're back, we're whole, and hopefully we can figure out what the hell is going on with this team, like what we should reasonably expect, and all kinds of stuff. Because that was a winnable game. I think that's probably what's so frustrating about this Falcons loss versus the Niners loss. Like, the Niners loss, we just had no chance. Like, offense looked bad, defense looked bad, special teams looked bad. This game, offense looked decent, special teams looked decent, but the defense was just ugly.
Yeah, you know what? At least this game was enjoyable to watch. I had fun watching this game. I didn't have any fun watching the 49ers game outside of basically one play.
Oh yeah, 100%. I definitely feel like I did not want to turn the Atlanta game off because it was so close. It was such a good game. The Niners game, I was tempted to like quit that game like all throughout it. So, Ross, what about you? We haven't talked to you in a while, so you know, in these past 2 weeks, you know, you missed a chance to talk about the Broncos win. We didn't get to talk about the Niners loss, and now you're back for this Falcons loss as we get into week 4 with the Detroit Lions coming up too.
Yeah. You want like my summary?
Yeah.
A little synopsis.
Let's get a 2 podcast worth of recap. Well, I'll start the timer and go.
Yeah. No, there was so much stuff. I'm so bummed I missed 2 weeks ago because there was so much stuff I really wanted to talk about the Russell Wilson game. Like, I wanted to kind of take a slightly different angle and just really talk about how, like, despite Pete Carroll's insistence that it's just another game and how we were all saying the same kind of thing in our podcast before it, but, like, the Seahawks went out and tried to, like, rub, like, Russ's nose in it, right? They brought in all the people in the locker room who didn't like him, had them raise the flag, kept showing highlights of them on the screen. I mean, like, they went out of their way to, like, make it was sort of Bill Belichickian, I thought. It was pretty cool, actually. So I'm sorry I missed the chance to talk about that. But, and it was, I mean, like, and I will now admit that I didn't realize at the time. It wasn't conscious, but, you know, during the podcast we talked, like, you know, Tony had chimed in and said, this is almost like a Super Bowl. And I'm like, nah, it's just a game. And I think I was just, like afraid because, but, like, once the game was happening and then we won it, I realized, like, yeah, it wasn't just a game. It really was sort of a measure of all things, and it was pretty fun. And then San Francisco happened, and I don't think that really needs a lot of expansion. That game speaks for itself. That's where we're at. That's where we're going to be. We have to take care of business in the games like Atlanta because we're not going to be very awesome this year. So when we do have the winnable games, I hope we win them, even though it maybe hurts our draft pick. We'll talk about that later. But, you know, much like Zeb, though, I wasn't even that mad. The game sort of played out how I thought it would play out, and we've got this issue now. I think we'll talk about it later. I'll find a topic to shoehorn it into, but I kind of want to talk about the PCAL system and his choice of quarterback. Because the game is winnable, and it was mostly on the defense that it wasn't. But you end up with that end of the game Pete Carroll situation where like Pete just wants it to be close, and in the fourth quarter, maybe the last or the second to last possession, we wrap it up, and we couldn't do it. And yeah, the defense stunk, but that's somewhat to be expected, isn't it? Like we've got a couple of rookies out there, or like a rookie cornerback, and our strong safety is not who we thought it was going to be, and we'll get there. We'll talk about that in the topic one. But anyway, I'm glad to be back. Sorry I missed it. For those who are interested, a couple of things just going on in my life, including this week officially looking at a CT scan and seeing I officially have, a bit of brain damage. Awesome.
Nice. Just like all the people we watch on Sunday, Ross is emulating them off the field as well. Good job.
Yeah, exactly. Working on it. And I'm getting official diagnosis from eye doctors that the only problem with me is that I'm old. So it's been an awesome 2 weeks of talking to doctors. They've got all kinds of good news. Whenever they're talking about your brain and the doctor just keeps saying asymmetrical, that's probably not awesome, but whatever. Anyway, let's move on, man.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of where we're at with the Seahawks. Everything is just kind of focusing on what's next. It's really interesting to think about in these past 3 weeks, and as we're leading into week 4 of the season, it's really been, I want to say it's been unlike any other year, because we've had it where, the offense wasn't working, but defense and special teams looked okay. The defense wasn't so great, but the offense picked up and the special teams was solid. Or, special teams was just bad this week, but that's okay because offense played well enough. Win or loss, we've had all those games. I don't think we've had a game where nothing looked good. And that was obviously 2 weeks ago. So coming back to this Atlanta game, seeing the offense just churn out plays, convert third downs, just like move and matriculate down the field, even at like almost at a snail pace, that was really fun to watch. The downfall is, we only got 3 possessions in the second half. One was a field goal, another was a punt, and then another was the final drive that ended in an interception. So it was a very close game. The Falcons obviously presented a really bad matchup for Seattle, and I think we're going to see that a lot this year. But like Zeb said earlier, it was a fun game to watch. There was a lot happening. It was close. It never felt like one team was really running away with it, except when the Falcons decided they wanted to run the ball. Seattle just could not do anything about it. So I think that's like, of all the things that really stuck out, that was something that I feel very, very concerned about.
When you were watching the game, did you think that maybe they should try to tackle number 84?
I mean, of all the plays that he had, the one that he went untouched into the end zone, that one I feel like there were a lot of bad runs. But for a guy 17 yards out to go untouched for a running touchdown, it was really bad. There's a couple plays that you could find if you follow a bunch of Seattle people on Twitter, Seahawks football people on Twitter. There was the all 22, which is where they show you like the sky view, so you can see sideline to sideline, and then you have it kind of like from 2 different angles. On that play, our linebackers basically just sat there. Like, they did not do anything. Either they didn't know what was happening, they had a poor play design, or basically they got lost. And that's half of the reason why Cordell Patterson just like went untouched. So they had 2 linebackers. They had Brooks and Cody Barton. Brooks kind of engages. The play was away from him, so he's not going to do much. But Cody Barton basically he engaged with like the center or the left guard, which is away from where Patterson ran to, and he just like went untouched. Everyone just blocked downfield and just scampered in for an easy touchdown. Bad sign. It's bad. It's real bad. And I'm not a big fan of Cody Barton. There's not a lot I see in him that I'm excited about, and that wasn't a great play for him.
Do you see him as the linebacker version of Zach Miller?
No, because I like Zach Miller. Like Zach
Oh,
Miller.
sorry, not Zach Miller. Sorry, the other one, the one you don't like.
Oh,
Sorry.
man, we're going way back to my John Carlson hate here. So
Yes.
John
Him as
Carl,
a person.
So here's just to add more history and context. John Carlson, for his first 2 years in Seattle, was really good. He wasn't great. He was just really good, very solid. And then in year 3, everyone said, "Oh, John Carlson's going to be this number 1 tight end in the NFL," and he just dropped a ton of balls. And I was just like, I'm not excited for this guy. So people still thought that he was going to be able to replicate his first 2 years of Seahawks football, and if he did, that would have been awesome. But he didn't. He sucked, and he dropped a ton of balls when he became a focal point of the offense, and that just bothered me. So,
Anyway, you don't like Cody Barton now?
I'm indifferent to Cody Barton. I just don't think he's very good. Like he hasn't even had as good of a season as John Carlson had. John Carlson at least had his first 2 years were like building towards something that people could get excited about. Cody Barton's just a guy. Like there's nothing about him that I feel is really strong. He's not overly fast. He doesn't look overly strong. I don't see him being very instinctual, especially on that touchdown play. So
we're going to talk about things.
So we're going to talk about it, but the Seahawks traveled to face the Detroit Lions, and our run of quote-unquote winnable games is starting to look a lot worse since our defense cannot stop anyone. The offense showed up and put enough points to win some games, but ultimately fell short as they allowed poor execution, penalties, and a late interception on 4th down to shut the door on their comeback chances. They now face an injury-riddled Lions team who are also looking to rebound. The defense has acknowledged their flaws, but is there time and the personnel to make them fix it in time for the game? This is a Hawkscast.net podcast brought to you by the Hawkscast Forum, and we are going to go into topic number 1. And Ross, because you're back with us, I'm going to open up with you. Ross, do the Seahawks suck, and are you okay with that?
I mean, suck is a strong word, and it probably applies, but I'm really okay with it. Yeah, I am mature now, apparently, so that I've tempered expectations, I think, and I mean, I went into the year, I came into the year, and I never was like, our window is open. No. I mean, this year's going to be what it is. I think I said early on that I just didn't want the Jim Mora year. I didn't want us to be not only awful, but boring and like nothing to watch. Yeah. I've brought up a couple times the one game I distinctly remember flying over from Japan all the way to Seattle to go to this game, and at halftime, I think we had 10 yards passing.
Oof.
I'm like, when you fly 10 hours to a game, like when you have more hours in the airplane than they have yards on the field, it's not great. It's not a great feeling. And for the first time ever, I sort of sat there and going, like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I could be at home. But this game was entertaining because I brought it up. Like, I wasn't bored. I was having a good time. And my expectations, of Gino are not that high. Again, yes, we scored enough points to win sort of 23, but again, this is the second half. We scored 3 points. Again, we had more passing yards than them. We had more time of possession than them, but this is, I think, where I actually questioned Pete a little bit. I'm going to go back. I made my piece when we went with Gino earlier, but now I'm starting to see things in a slightly different light. Going back to last season, like Pete Carroll's football is keep the game close so that in the fourth quarter you win the game. But don't we have the exact wrong quarterback for that? And we kind of knew it, and we still gave him the job. Like last year, we had several games, and because we had 10 years of Russ, we were used to winning them. Like, it comes down to the last possession. You give Gino the ball, and so we think we're going to win because we're conditioned by Russ. But then almost inevitably, Gino has become very good at taking care of the ball. High completion percentage, low interception percentage, but if he gets the ball with the game on the line, with one drive to do it, I feel like, and I have to check the exact statistics on this or the numbers on it, but I feel like almost every time he turns the ball over.
So in the last 3 games where the Seahawks have the ball with a chance to win, we're talking about the Falcons game this past week. We're talking about the New Orleans game last year and the Pittsburgh game last year. And in all 3 games, Seattle has the ball. It's either tied or they have a chance to take the lead with a touchdown. And in all 3 times, they've ended in a turnover. In this last one, do you consider that 4th down turnover the same as the Pittsburgh and Saints game?
Maybe not, but he also took the sack. And that's the thing. Like, it's not just the turnover. It's also like when it's the last thing you can do, you can't take the sack. I feel like some people, lots of people say clutch isn't a thing, and I almost agree sometimes. But there are some people who don't feel pressure. There are people who feel pressure, and there's some people who seem to respond to pressure. And I feel like I don't think Gino wets himself or anything, but I think it's a weird coincidence. So it's probably more than coincidence that when the game's on the line, when Pete Carroll wants the situation, he can't do it, and that's fine. Like I recently used the example with my friend Yumi. Like, you don't get mad at a cat for being a cat. I'm not mad at Gino for being Gino, but that's who he is, and we know who he is. And if we know that's who he is, then we have to adjust too. We can't purely play to win the game in the 4th quarter if you don't have a quarterback who steps up in that situation. So do we suck? We kind of suck.
What do you think we suck at? Like if we were to categorize suckage.
I think the defense, we're going to talk about this later because it seems like it's where you're headed with a different question. But the defense is playing with a different coordinator and with a different scheme this year. It's much more closer to a 3-4. So this goes to the play you were just talking about, where you're saying Cody Barton doesn't have football instincts that you can see, but his instincts don't matter. And in the NFL, sometimes, especially in run defense, your instincts don't matter much if you're a linebacker, a new inside linebacker. Whether or not you read the play or not, you're not allowed to, especially at his age and his level of secureness with that job. He has to play his area. He has his responsibility, and it's new. They've played with a middle linebacker up to now, and he's always played middle linebacker. Now you're an inside linebacker, and the responsibilities are very, very different. You don't have just the middle of the field as a vacuum cleaner. You're now actually the playmaker and on the side of the field plus the middle. So I just think that they show us, there's so little practice time now. There's so little opportunity to really do this until you get into the games that I think that they're just still learning their jobs. I think the defense will come around. They expected to have a completely different strong safety up in there. They expected to have a strong safety who we've ragged on, but we all know is good at least run defense. And he's not in there.
Right.
He's not playing. Taylor, we expected to make some steps, and he's not going to. And maybe now he's going to cede some playing time to a rookie. And we have a rookie corner out there. So, and some of our rookie corners are really, really awesome. At classic corner stuff and cool stuff, but they're all a bit light. Tariq Woolen with his 4.3 speed, I don't think he's going to be like a monster in the run defense. He's not going to be a Richard Sherman just holding that corner like a bastion of steel. He's going to be a bit of a liability on some outside runs. And Kobe Bryant, amazing sack, right? Did you see him come off from the slot corner? Just destroyed.
Perfectly timed. Mariota had no chance.
And that should excite us. But that dude's not a big dude either. And so until he gets lots of solid technique and some experience, he's going to be a little bit of a liability, particularly in the run game. He's a corner. He can cover. Looks like he can already cover. Looks like he can blitz like a mofo. But in the run defense, it's going to be a project. It's going to be patient. That's what this year's about. We're starting 2 tackles that are rookies on the outside, and this is the first game that they probably kind of looked like rookies sometimes. They made some rookie mistakes, some penalties and some holds and spotty blocking. But we're gonna take our lumps. Let's take our lumps so we can be awesome next year.
All right, fair enough. Birdfinger chiming in on the chat said, I believe we don't have the right QB on the roster. Drew showed nothing. Gino is the best shit sandwich we got. Zeb, do the Seahawks suck, and are you okay with that?
Seahawks suck, and they don't. I mean, I think they're going to be competitive in most of the games this year. Like, I think a lot of these games are going to look like this game this weekend did. But I mean, Ross pretty much covered all of it.
So, real quick, are you okay with that? If this is a question. If this is what happens, and let's say they don't lose all of the games, but if this is the type of game Seahawks play for the next 14 plus weeks, are you going to stay glued to your TV? Are you going to watch them on TV? Go to the games when you have a chance? Is that going to be okay with you?
Yeah, it's fine. I occasionally have to remind myself, but this isn't the team that's going to compete for championships. This is us trying to find the team that's going to compete for championships. This is a team with new coordinators, a new defensive scheme. This is a team, basically playing a 3-4, but it doesn't necessarily have 3-4 personnel. Cody Barton isn't the guy who's gonna be able to lead that defense. But he's what we have.
One second. I just want to, in advance, apologize to Cody Barton. We're not really trying to bash you this week. It's just a result of the game and what were the topics. But, Cody, we know you're doing your best, man.
Cody Barton, big Hawkscast.net fan. We know this.
Yeah. Sometimes you have Jacob Green and sometimes you have Matt LaBounty. You know what I mean? Like, you have who you have. But
there you go.
It's going to be up and down. And, my brother, shout out to my brother, Joe Guns. He's at the point he wants them to put in Locke, not because he thinks Locke is better than Gino, but that he thinks it'll be more fun because Locke will take some shots down the field and do some of those things. And I see where he's coming from. But I think what's happening here is that Gino is the guy who can operate this offense the way they want it to operate. And that gives the players around him better opportunities to get better, I think. And I think this is the way the coaches are looking at it. But he's not going to go down and win you the game. He's just not going to. That's not the way he works. He's going to give us 2 to 3 solid quarters of play. But that defense... that defense has to get better to win these games. And I don't see that defense getting that much better this season.
I have a question there.
What's up?
Why not? Like, Tariq Woolen is a rookie, and he's playing his first snaps. Like, rookies should get better, right? And Kobe Bryant should get better. And the dude, what's the dude who's our strong safety right now? Josh Jones.
Josh Jones. Jessica Jones.
That dude, JJ. He's actually quite a veteran dude, but has never had a lot of starting. I feel like this is. I just want to hear your take on it. And like this week sounds like Mafe is going to get some more playing time.
Boye.
I just feel like, and like again, it is a new even for Brooks, it's a new system somewhat. I feel like there's a lot of room for them to get better this year. I feel like the table said that by mid-season or second half of the season, the light can come on for some of these players. Do you not see that? Do you not agree with that? And if not, why not?
No, I think they're going to get better as the year goes on. I just don't think they're going to get that much better.
Okay, they're going to go from a 5 to a 6.
Here's what I think, and I maybe. This is kind of out of my league. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I think what they're doing now is trying to find out which of these guys are going to work in the system they're trying to implement.
That makes sense.
And they're struggling right now. So we're going to see as the season goes on which guys adapt and look like they can be part of this. Again, Cody Barton probably isn't going to be the one. But a lot of these guys have been playing in not a 3-4. I don't know. We're not playing a true 3-4. That's too much for me. That's too much X's and O's. But things are different now, and guys are going to have to learn to adapt to it. And so I think this season is kind of tryouts. See who we want to hold on to moving forward. And I'm okay with that. As long as I see improvement as the year goes on, and we start to see some of these guys look like, okay, these are guys that we want to hold on to and keep going into the next couple of seasons, I'm okay with that. Just as long as we see that improvement, we're not going to see Gino improve and become a guy that's going to go win you the game in the fourth quarter. That's not going to happen. He's who he is, but he's going to put the ball into the hands of some of these younger guys and let this offensive line progress. And I think we're going to have a much better idea of what the future of this team looks like towards the end of the season.
Well, Cody Barton has 27 tackles, man, in 3 games.
He's not terrible. He has terrible moments.
Yeah. Bird said, this isn't a championship team, but I'm hoping that it is an entertaining team this season. And I agree with that. And to answer the question for topic number 1, yes, the Seahawks suck. They haven't scored an offensive touchdown in the second half all year. I think they only have 6 offensive points. I'm not including Tariq Woolen's block for a touchdown and the point after. They have 6 points, a field goal in the second half in the Denver game, and a field goal in the second half of the Atlanta game. So yeah, our offense sucks. Our defense terrible. We can't stop anyone. Everyone that I've talked to that talks scheme and understands that, they said that the Falcons came out in a heavy run defense, daring us to pass or something, and we wouldn't. They gave us a defensive look where we were going to be having trouble passing the ball and dared us to run, and we didn't run. So our defense.
That's the big mystery. If we're going to talk on this topic a little bit.
We'll talk about that.
Explain to me why we're not just trying to just run the ball 1 billion times. We averaged almost 5 yards a carry.
I know. Our special teams, I love Michael Dixon. He's still solid. I don't think he does anything wrong at this point. So, but that special teams gaffe in the Niners game, yeah, our special teams suck. So it's okay. The reason why it's okay is, like Bird said, okay. This isn't the championship team. Like Zeb said, this is tryouts. We need to figure out. Now, what will be the tell sign is we're hearing reports that Boye Mafe is going to get more playing time now. That's going to be something that, is going to impact Darrell Taylor. Nwosu has been playing really, really solid. He's won Defensive Player of the Week for the NFC in Week 1. I still think he's been solid. Tariq is flashing. He had a great interception. I don't know why Mariota threw that ball with 5 seconds left on the play clock, but great for Tariq's stats. Kobe Bryant with a nice sack. I'd obviously like to see him more in coverage, but for the most part, we're not seeing the game completely picked on. But this team is not good. They're young in a lot of core areas. The tackles are new, and I think they're playing really well. But this is not who we are going to see lead us to the promised land. They're either too young right now, or we don't even know who they are on the roster. The reason why it's okay is because that this isn't the team that is going to bring us to the promised land. If this is what we saw last year, if this is the team that we saw last year with Russell Wilson, I would be alarmed, just like I think we were last year, where we're not winning the close games. We have games where we don't do anything well. The one win that we do get is because the other team basically messes it up for themselves, and that's okay. I'm okay with this team sucking because I know it's not its final form. This is not our final evolution Pokemon style. There's still more to come down the road, and I'm okay with that because we.
Did you just say Pokemon style?
Yeah,
what?
Pokemon style evolutions.
I don't know about that. I saw that movie though.
All right, well, we are going a little bit long, so we are going to push through. I'm going to go to topic number 2 because this kind of leads into everything. Zeb, I need to know, can Pete fire a coordinator before the halfway point of this year? I'm I'm not impressed with any of our guys. I don't know if that's something you are concerned about, because you said it's okay that they suck, but can the coordinators continue to do what they're doing?
You can't fire them. I mean, not for football reasons. I mean, if one of them gets caught diddling a kid or, some weird shit happens, you can fire them. But I think our coordinators are in the same position as our players are right now. They're trying out. They're trying to implement new systems with uncertain personnel. I think they need experience more than anything else. So I think that's where Pete's head at is. He just wants to get these guys experience and give them a chance to learn and grow into the players and coaches that he believes they can become. And so we're not a coordinator away from being a championship caliber team. Like it's way too early to even consider something like that. But I don't think there's any way that we make a change there during the season.
What is it about Clint Hurt or Shane Waldron that says, okay, I see some glimpses. I see some rays of light shining through the cracks. What do you see from either of these two that thinks that they could be the one to fill it out for the future?
Nothing. They both, I mean, it's awful. They're just really not playing great football. I mean, okay, the offense looked much better this week than it did the previous week, but it's the defense looks lost half the time, and I think that's just because not everybody's really fully on the same page yet.
I mean, on my Twitter feed, I saw a lot of Ken Norton Jr. apologies pop up. I don't know if that happened to anyone else during that game.
I mean,
are you in the Ken Norton family chat?
Apparently, Ken Norton was getting the love out, saying oh, maybe we shouldn't have been blaming him.
I think Clint Hurt needs to be given the time to prove himself. Pete obviously believes in him. I mean, he kind of gave him the job out of nowhere. I don't think it was a ton of people thinking that he was going to be the guy. You have to. I think you have to stick with it. That's Pete, right? Pete believes in his guys. He supports his guys. He's going to give them all the opportunity to do what he thinks they can do, and nothing's gonna happen during the season.
Ross, what about you? Obviously, this question is a little facetious, but I think what it speaks to is it speaks to these are concerns that I think all of us should have, because if they're trying out for the future, what do they have to bring? Bird says play calling is giving Geno a high completion percentage, but that's all I got. So outside of Geno completing 80% of his throws, leading the league, him and Jared Goff of all people.
I mean, I've said this before, going after coordinators is going after low-hanging fruit. I mean, it's, you know what, no matter who your coordinator is, and you look at the playbooks, every playbook is full of plays that are fundamentally sound. In the end, the players have to win. The players have to win their individual assignments. You can have the worst coordinator in the world, well, not the worst in the world, but if you have a reasonable coordinator and he's calling a reasonable game, really all that matters is did the left tackle win? Did he do his job? Did he do his assignment? Did he block the guy on the edge? And then did the fullback or the tight end, did he get the guy on the next level? And if so, then did the running back recognize the hole, and did he take the hole, and did he get to the next level? And did he do his best and get his 3 or 4 yards? I mean, it's, as much as we pretend that some of these guys are quote-unquote geniuses or whatever, it's really not. It's basics. Coordinators basically shuffle the deck a little bit different. They call your plays in a different order, put the guys in a little bit different position to be in the right position to have an advantage every play. But at the end of the day, the guys on the field have to win their assignments. So I'm not really going to go after. I'm going to go after the NFL Players Association. They whined so much in those contract negotiations a couple negotiations ago to give us playing time. And that's especially what I think is affecting the defense now. I just said it a few minutes ago. Like, how much did they really practice? You get a pretty different. You get a defensive coordinator who's different. You're running a somewhat of a 3-4 with different responsibilities. And how much did you actually practice it? How much? There's no 2-a-days. It's not 4 weeks of 2-a-days. It's 2.5 weeks of 1-a-days. And one of those days traditionally becomes like a bowling day or whatever, like they haven't practiced. They haven't practiced together. They haven't practiced at full speed. They haven't practiced in pads. They haven't practiced tackling. So yeah, guess what? When you don't practice tackling, you don't tackle as well. Surprise. So as the season goes on and they get chances to hit and they get chances to tackle and they get chances to sack and they get chances to do stuff at full speed, I think the defense in particular will come around. The offense will be held back by the fact that got a quarterback who's really, really done well at improving. When he was with the Jets early in his career, he was like a sub 50% completion dude, I think. So he's really, really turned on his accuracy and really turned on how to protect the ball, and that's why Pete wants him. But, that, I don't know. I feel a little bit bad for Shane Waldron. Like, Shane Waldron took the job because he was handpicked by Russ, and Russ left. I get to work with a Hall of Fame quarterback? Cool. Yeah, for 1 year. And then we're going to give you a 9-year retread. Thanks. I don't think they should be fired for that. That's not his job. That's not his fault. He didn't make Russ leave. Russ left. He was left with to pick it up. And he's got 2 rookie tackles. He's got a rookie running back. He's got a crippled running back. So let's just see how it goes. Give him a chance. I don't think this is on the coordinators at all.
I think those are both very fair statements. And maybe what happens is if you start saying like, yeah, someone needs to make a change at this coordinator, someone needs to make a change over here, you're really talking about almost a head coach because Pete's the consistent of all of this. Now, the one thing that I look at is I look at our offense and our defense, and I don't see a lot of what Pete wants to do. From the offensive standpoint, we're taking care of the ball, but we're not going over the top. Like, there's not a lot of reliance on, like, run-heavy play action. I'm not ready to, like, fire anyone, but I've talked about this on the podcast before. You both know that I'm not a big fan of Shane Waldron. I just don't think there's anything exciting about him. Last year, I had a lot of people that I would say that, saying, like, Shane looks like he sucks. And they would say, oh, you can't say that because it's Russ that's limiting him, or we're not running because Russ is audibling to a pass, and he's not going to go with the check down. He's not going to throw across the middle. Well, we're not running. We're not going over the top. We're not really doing a lot of things that are like what we would see from a traditional Pete Carroll offense. And maybe that's just because we've had 10 years of rest. We don't know what that looks like. And on the defensive side, I have no clue what this defense is. I have no clue like what we're trying to focus on. I don't know what we're supposed to be best at. I don't know like where we're going to be generating any kind of like success. And while, yeah, the coordinators are the low-hanging fruit, and ultimately maybe that means I should be looking at Pete Carroll, they just don't look like a Pete Carroll offense or defense. And I feel as if Pete's given both of them a lot of opportunity to kind of let things run, and they're not doing really well with it. I'm just not impressed. The fact that we can't run the ball, and Russ, I know you wanted to talk about that a little bit, but I looked at it. We only had 3 possessions in the second half of the Atlanta game. We had 31 plays, a field goal, a punt, and then an interception. We ran the ball 9 times, and we passed the ball 22 times. So there was a 2-to-1 pass-to-run ratio in what was always a one-score game. And even when Seattle had the lead at one point, they still didn't run the ball. Like, Penny didn't get his touches. Like, Walker didn't get his touches. Travis Homer got hurt, but he's not the focal point of our run game. DJ Dallas ran the ball, and he ran well. So we're not doing the things that I expected Pete to say, like, this is our focus. Because he said it the past few games. We need to run the ball more. We need to run the ball more. And
honestly, I really thought going to this year we'd be running the ball like 35 times a game.
so the one thing that I've heard is that because our 2 tackles come from a pass-heavy system, we don't want to burden them with a run-heavy system from the get-go because they're just not built for it. They don't have the technique down. They're not going to be really versed in it.
But who's saying that? Is that fan speculation?
I think it's definitely speculation. This is not heard because I don't think anyone understands why we're not running. I've heard some people say, oh, well, you can't just look at the raw numbers because it depends on down and distance. It depends on where you're on the field. But you can look at the raw numbers and say, like, hey, we're going a 2-to-1 ratio. This is essentially what it was like when we had Russ. You know, Gino's doing great with those completions, and in the last game he's getting a ton of yards. But they're not leading to points. And
there's some worrying things even about the passing. Like, Metcalf has 16 receptions. Okay? So how many yards does he have?
He's got like 130, I think, something like that. Maybe
he's 130 yards. Like there's something going on that Metcalf is averaging less than 8.5 yards a reception. But I don't know. Like, is that the coordinator? Is that I suspect because you know what a route tree looks like. You know what a route on a play diagram looks like. I really doubt that Shane is telling Gino, okay, here's the play, but ignore the 9-yard dig, ignore the 12-yard slant, only take the 5-yard, out. I don't think he's saying that. I don't think that's even the priority. I think pre-snap read, Gino is so conditioned to take now to be safe with the ball and to complete every pass that Gino's pre-deciding early to take the easiest pass. That's often what you're supposed to do, but you're supposed to take the reasonably easy. If there's a 70% chance and a 60% chance, take that 60% chance if it's down the field because that's still a high thing.
Right.
But Gino's taking that 70% thing every time, but it's the 5-yard in, the 4-yard dig, the bubble screen. Every time.
The bubble screen.
Every time.
That's another reason why I don't like Waldron. We suck at screens and he still calls them.
Yeah, I mean...
All right, well...
So, I don't know if it's... I just don't know... I just don't know whose fault it is.
This is a thing that, of all the things that I do not like about Pete, this is like probably the biggest one that's like a negative and a positive. He will protect the team and he will take the blame. Even if there is like one person responsible for it, we will never know who it is until years later when someone leaks it out.
I like that. I love that about him.
And that's why I say it's a good and a bad.
As a fan, but that's a good boss.
What it is that it's the culture that Pete builds, and he is the best at it in the NFL. But as a fan, you wonder, and it's where it leads to a lot of confusion, a lot of frustration, and I think right or wrong, Pete gets the blame for that, for not being more honest with us, which he doesn't owe us that. Like that's not part of why we watch the game. That's what we want as fans, but it's not something that we necessarily deserve. Anyway, we gotta move ahead because we're running low on time here, so we're gonna jump ahead to topic number 3. But we are gonna let Ross kick it off. This is the Hawkscast Corner, topic number 3. Ross, when do you start your draft watch, and do you want Pete and John at the helm? So just to give you a little tankathon news, Seattle at 1 and 2 is currently slotted for the number 3 draft pick. Atlanta beat them. They're in the 4th spot. So Seattle is scheduled to draft 3rd overall, and with Denver's pick, they're scheduled to draft 25th overall.
I mean, honestly, I don't even. It's in the back of my mind, but if anything, I'm paying more attention to the Broncos than mine because it's very complicated when you're a Seahawks fan. Like, literally, I was just talking about this just before we started the podcast, but I recognize on some level every time we lose, the silver lining is that that's a better pick, especially in a year like this. But I don't pay much attention to that at all. I pay attention to, I don't even necessarily like this. I wish I was a bigger person. I admit that I'm cheering against Russ this year a little bit. I don't like that about myself. I still like him as a player, I think, but I guess I almost wanted him to learn a slight lesson. So I'm more on board with the Denver Broncos draft pick watch, I think, than the Seahawks one.
Do you want Pete and John to be running the show? I mean, I don't think there's any question they will be, but your personal preference?
I want to give them one shot at like finding the next generation quarterback, and then I'll know. Like, I'm not like where I was like 3 or 4 years ago. I don't think anything's been a fireable offense, anything like that. But okay, full disclosure, since this is semi-related to that question. So I've hinted at this a couple times on our board and everything when I'm writing. I'm now at this place where I'm a little bit sad because I feel like both Seattle and Russell Wilson would both be doing better if they had found a way to make it work. And along with that, I clearly admit that I believe that 70, maybe 75, maybe 80% of that fault is with Russell Wilson. I believe he's not very honest with himself. I don't think he has self-awareness, which I discussed earlier, as I think is really remarkable to be a 10-year Hall of Fame type level athlete, but still have that low level of self-awareness of what you really are. Okay, cool. So I placed the minority of the problem with Pete Carroll and John Schneider. But even though I say that they are less responsible for it, Pete Carroll is the adult in the room, and I really, really, really wish Pete Carroll had found a way to make it work. And the fact that he couldn't make it work with his Hall of Fame quarterback. So now, if it's all over and it's time to let Pete go out to pasture and we just start all over again, I'm more at peace with it than before. Fully recognizing it means we might suck for 10 years again, like we've had those stretches before. But if that's truly, truly the end of our era and it's time to just ride off into the sunset, cool. That means I get to the time where I fully appreciate it in retrospect faster. Cool. I am okay with that. Yeah.
Spoken.
But as far as
spoken like someone who understands the tides of time.
That's my take.
Zeb, when do you start the draft watch, and do you want Pete and John leading the way?
Well, I think whether I want them leading the way or not, they are. But I think that regardless, we're probably 2 to 3 seasons away from them not being there. Kind of no matter what happens, I have this feeling that this is all going to come to an end. Hopefully in glory, but possibly not. Personally, I'm nowhere near starting a draft watch. I just don't pay that much attention. I like watching football. I like watching the Seahawks play. That's the most important part to me. But it is interesting to see, kind of like Ross is talking about, like watching and rooting against the Broncos and seeing the possibility of us having some decently high first-round picks. For somebody who is really into the draft and watches a lot of college ball and knows some of the guys coming out, I think you don't have to wait too much longer before you start trying to map that all out. Right now, how many teams are 1-2 and how many teams are 2-1? Like just about everybody.
Yeah,
so,
it's this year. I mean, obviously it's early in the season. There's 2 winless teams and there's 2 undefeated teams. Everyone is 1-2 or 2-1, and then there's
right.
Indy,
couple teams with ties.
That's 1-1-1, and then Houston, who's 2-1.
Yeah, so you can try and base it on how the teams look. Like, do we look like we're going to get a high draft pick? Yeah, we do. But there's still a lot of football to play. So I think you got to wait until a team is closer to, 1-8 or 8-1 before you start looking at them having the number 1 pick or drafting at the end of the round. So, but it's going to be fun. There's a lot of a lot to look forward to in next year's draft, just based on how much capital we have.
Are you were you both sad when Russ led the Broncos on a comeback win against the Niners?
I mean,
No.
I can't root for either of them at this point. So,
I mean, I know I was rooting for our draft pick. I could
Right.
care less about the Niners whether they won or not, but I was rooting for them to lose. And once Russ went off script, all of a sudden he was moving the ball without a problem.
I like to watch the Niners lose. I mean, I'm a big fan of that, so I get some enjoyment out of it. And like Ross said, I still do love Russell. I like the guy. I like him, and I think he's a huge part of the history of this team going forward.
Yes, definitely.
I don't hate him, but yeah, they can lose. Go ahead and lose. I'm happy with it.
I will be honest, and I benched him on my fantasy team and started Geno. So for me, it was a great decision.
Dude, in one of my fantasy leagues, somebody dropped Russell Wilson for Geno Smith.
I that happened in I want to say in my longtime league, someone dropped Russell Wilson, and someone picked him up on waivers for like $22, which is a lot. I think I put in a bid for 10. But yeah, I'm not starting draft watch for Seattle so much, but I'm definitely watching the draft for the Broncos because we have their pick, and the worse they do, the better for us. Even regardless of what I want, John and Pete will definitely be at the helm. I think that's just the reason why you get rid of Russ is because you give Pete and John more time. But I'm confident that they can do something with it because everyone says, "Oh, they've been so bad at the draft." It's like, well, they've been bad at the draft, quote unquote, when they're drafting at the end of the first versus drafting in the front. And the 3 times they've been drafting at the front, it's 2011, 2012, and 2022. Those are the 3 times that they were drafting in the front half of the draft, and those are all regarded. And this 22 class looks very strong. And the 11 and the 12 draft were great. They drafted exceptionally well. And since then, we've been drafting in the back half, trading out, trading futures for, what we assumed would always be late first-round picks. So I do think they have a chance. I do think, especially with the way the 2019, the 2020, and the 2022 drafters look, I think that they're still the guys for it. And I'm looking forward to see what they do with it, especially because no matter what happens, they're still going to have 2 first-round draft picks. Bird saying he was rooting for Russ to lose too. So Bird and I and many of us were on the same wavelength. But let's move along. Our final topic of the night is topic number 4, the Detroit Lions. And Zeb, has Dan Campbell won over the Lions to the point that they will believe in themselves? They're only 1-2, but their games are very well fought. They're featured on Hard Knocks, and they're getting a lot of good press. They're getting all this wave of support. Detroit had their first home opener sellout in years. People are excited for this team. Is Dan Campbell, is he the guy that's going to lead them to the promised land? And is that a concern for this game on Sunday against the Lions?
Yeah, the Lions are improving, and they are playing their butts off, and they are fun to watch. And I think they've really taken on the personality of their coach, and it's showing. I think he's completely won them over. It was questionable at first, the way, people weren't really sure if his style was going to work, but it seems to be. And I'm God, they're just a lot of fun to watch. It's kind of interesting. They're going to come into this game this weekend, and they're going to do everything they can to beat us. And I'm not going to be surprised if we lose to them. So they're looking good, and they're fun, and they're really, really competing. If I was a Detroit Lions fan, I'd be very optimistic.
Ross, what about you? They've got Jared Goff. They have Jamal Williams, DeAndre Swift. Swift's a little banged up. They have
The Sun God.
Yeah, the Sun God. They got T.J. Hawkinson, who's banged up.
Josh Reynolds.
Josh.
Don't sleep on Josh Reynolds.
You talking about Craig Reynolds?
No, Josh Reynolds.
Harold
Oh,
Reynolds.
they've got two Reynolds.
They do.
They have two Reynolds. So Amon
Dude has
Ross St. Brown, he's banged up right now, and so is their tight end and their running back. They still have Jamal Williams, but
did you see Jamal Williams' speech during the preseason?
I did not.
Holy cow! Go! When you're done here, go YouTube that. That got like me emotional. I sent the link to Tony. Tony and I got all emotional. Like the dude is just like him. He broke down in tears, and he was like, don't even get it confused. Like these are not like sad tears. These are just tears of like emotion for this team. He was just saying like last year was horrible and an awful record, but that isn't us. That isn't us. That isn't who we are. That isn't going to define us. This is a new year. And man, I've never seen a team so just believing in themselves and so pumped. So a lot of what Zeb was saying feels like it should. Lions have always been one of my sort of backup teams. Any team that sucked traditionally in the 80s, I had a lot of empathy for. So going all the way back to like Billy Sims. So I've always had a soft spot for them. I don't want them to do well this week, but I think I'm hoping like from week 5 they just go on a tear. But like Zeb said, if they gave us a game, if they punch us in the mouth and they win this game somehow, I'm not going to be shocked. They're motivated. So, and they're a fun team to watch. I like their talent. I don't hate Goff as much as everybody else has always hated him. I actually feel a little bit bad for the dude sometimes.
He's a number 1 pick, and he's been pretty mediocre.
Yeah,
I mean, as mediocre as you can be to take a team to a Super Bowl, yeah.
But it's an interesting thing when you're a number 1 pick and you're mediocre, because that says maybe something about you, or does it say something about the team that part of the fact that you're seen that way is because you're the number 1 pick. But if the person picking you didn't realize that, then that's why are you taking them number 1? You didn't recognize what they are. It's hard. I mean, it's
to be fair,
the legacy of who you were number 1 pick. But I don't know if like they overran an offense that was best for him. They always do their thing. So
to be fair, though, Jeff Fisher is the one that drafted Jared Goff, and then Sean McVay took him over and took him to the Super Bowl. So. But they liked him so much they traded 2 first-round picks just to get rid of him.
I mean, dude, like he got so jobbed. Like their coach, quote unquote, just happens to be at a hotel in Mexico with the other dude. Come on, how are we supposed to believe that?
Oh, of course, but
people apparently believe that wasn't collusion. That dude knew Stafford was there. They agreed to meet there.
Yeah, it was one I was like, hey, what wouldn't it be so great if we were in Mexico at the same time at the one hotel of many? Yeah.
Of all the resort hotels and all of the beaches and all of Mexico, he happened to be at mine.
Exactly. It was destiny. That's what happened. But yeah. Well, I think it's interesting because Dan Campbell, I think, is the type of head coach that resonates with a lot of people, that it's so emotional, it's so earnest that it's hard not to get caught up in it. Whether or not that translates to wins, that will be like a whole different thing. Because they can say, oh yeah, last year that wasn't us, and they could feel that, they could mean it. But if they still don't improve, that's going to be the problem. So if you look at their seasons past, so last year they were like 3-13, 3-13-1 because of a tie. They got beat by the Seahawks 51-29 in Week 17, the second to last game of the year. And that team, there's a lot of carryover from that team last year to this year. A lot of the same receiving core, a lot of the same running core. They have added to the defense, especially in the draft. I don't know if I'm overly concerned about the Lions as a whole because their defense looks as terrible as ours. They've given up 38 points, 27 points, and 28 points. They made a really, really great comeback to try and get the game close with Philadelphia, but they basically ran out of time, and it was a game where Philadelphia ran the clock out, and that's how they were able to win, even though they only lost by 3. They destroyed the Commanders 36-27 in week 2, and they lost to the Vikings 28-24 when they couldn't hold the lead, which is something that Seahawks fans in these past few years have seen way too often. I think it's going to be a fun, close game. If the offense can do at least somewhat what they did against the Falcons, there's no reason to think that it couldn't be a high-scoring 20-20, high 20s game for both teams. But I question whether or not Dan Campbell's motivational, emotional aspect is enough to carry this Detroit Lions team all the way through. I think that still remains to be seen, because it's still one thing to say, like, this is what we believe, this is what we want to do, versus actually being able to do it. And I don't know if they're there yet. And if they are, I think that'll be great. I'd love to see the Lions do well in the NFC North, because I don't like any of the teams in that division except, maybe by default the Lions, because they've been so bad for so many years.
Sympathy with victory.
Everyone in the division gets one sympathy winner, because you got to root for somebody in that division to win. It's not going to be the Packers or the Vikings. The Bears could sneak into like that indifferent team, but for now it's the Lions.
Yep.
Final thoughts on the Lions.
The Lions. I don't know.
Final thoughts on the Lions, man.
The Lions. The Detroit Lions. Gotta love them.
When's the last time we played the Lions and we're like, gosh, I wonder if we'll win?
And
that's where we're at.
And yet we have lost to them. Even with one of our best teams ever, they beat us.
They have.
Which year was that?
What was it? It was 2012 or 2013. Marshawn had a great game. He had broke off that long, 70-yarder, and we still managed to lose the game.
Ooh.
Unless I'm misremembering, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a way back game.
That was the Legion of Boom. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But at that time, they had Megatron. They had Matt Stafford when people still thought he was like a really, really good quarterback. I think then they made it to the playoffs 2 years later, so it's not like they were terrible, but yeah. And we've had some close games, because we had that one game on Monday night where KJ, it was KJ or Cam. Oh, Cam popped the ball from Megatron like a half yard before he crossed the plane, and then KJ scooted the ball out of bounds, and then
that was like Cam's first game back from his little mini holdout.
Yeah, so that was 2014 maybe.
Something
looking
like
at
that.
this, I'm looking at the games Zeb was talking about. Marshawn had a 77-yard touchdown, and the Lions scored 14 points in the fourth quarter to win the game.
Yeah.
Titus Young, a legend, cut a touchdown pass, and then Jason Hansen kicked a field goal, and they won 28-24.
And then the playoff game that you guys took me to.
Yeah, Zeb and I got together. That was a great game. That was the one where Paul Richardson caught the ball between
crazy catch.
And we thought, oh, it's just a flag, no big deal. But then they signal touching. How did that guy catch the ball?
And we got the old Thomas Rawls back for one game.
Ooh, he was so good.
He was running.
Oh, running the ball. Well, I wonder what that feels like.
We run the ball.
We'll just never know.
Can we just run the ball this weekend, please?
Maybe.
That's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to do. They're going to run it down our throats. So,
if I were opposing offense, that's what I would do. Seattle can't stop the run, so.
All right, predictions, man.
All right, let's do some predictions. Zeb, I'm going to let you kick it off. Final score: Seahawks at the Lions.
Seahawks 27, Lions 24.
Okay. Ross?
28-21 Seattle.
It's a 4-point spread. The Lions are the favorite by 4 per just betting. I'm not overly confident in the Seahawks defense still, so I'm going to say it's 30-28 Lions. Seahawks
Ooh,
cover. Seahawks cover. I know.
boo this man.
Well deserved though. Zeb, over under 28.5 time of possession for the Seahawks. They led the game last week, 31-28, and some seconds there. But are they gonna have more than 28.5 minutes of possession in this game?
I'll go under. The Lions are gonna run. We're gonna throw.
Okay, fair enough.
We're gonna throw, but it's all gonna be 3-yard out, so it's gonna be over for us.
Right.
I'm gonna actually push. This is like the one few time where you could actually push because we're talking about minutes here. I think we are gonna be a little bit less than the Lions, where it's gonna be 28.5. I think 28-29 around there. So I'm gonna say it's a push.
All right.
Zeb, over under 19 and a half rushing attempts for your Seattle Seahawks. Over under, please.
Go ahead and just say over.
It's gotta be
I'm
over.
gonna just contradict myself.
It's
Over.
got to be over, but I don't trust Shane Waldron. I'm gonna put under.
Guy looks like a bucket of. He looks like a bucket of grease.
Gets ready for the game, just like rubs his hand in a used KFC bucket.
Yep.
Zeb, over under 2.5 Michael Dixon punts.
Over.
Over. Okay.
MVP. He's our best weapon.
Funny thing, the Denver Broncos punter was the special teams player of the week because he punted the ball so much on Monday night. Sunday night.
I'm gonna go under.
You're gonna go under.
Weird things happening.
I mean, Dixon only punted 2 times in that game, so I mean, I think that's a good sign. But if the defense can't stop, he's just gonna have limited opportunities. I'm gonna go under, not because our offense isn't gonna do anything. I just don't think we're gonna have the possessions. Final prediction for the evening, Zeb. Jason Myers, over under 1.5 field goal attempts.
Over.
Ross?
Over.
Yeah, I'm gonna go over as well. I'm worried about our offense just not being able to do a whole lot in the second half, and I think we're gonna have to settle for a lot of field goals, which is never a good sign. But those are our predictions for the evening. Gentlemen, final thoughts before we get to some shout-outs.
I hope it's an interesting game. I hope it's fun. I hope to see us make some adjustments and see some improvements, and see some of our young guys make some good plays. That's what I'm here for this season. Improvement.
I'm down.
Just being a pure fan. Just watch it for the enjoyment of the game.
Exactly.
The pageantry of it all.
Just like I used to do back in 1992.
Ross, final thoughts before we get to some shout-outs?
I'm just with Zeb's at, man. I just want to watch a good game.
Yeah.
Give me a good game.
I think if we see 20, 24-ish plus points, I think that'll be a fun, entertaining game for the Seahawks.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. Time for some shout-outs?
Hey, rest in peace, Coolio.
R.I.P.
Sad day.
Yeah. Rest in peace. Like Gangster's Paradise, man.
Yeah, man. Fantastic voyage.
Yeah.
Ross,
my shout out is to Yumi, who's been staying up or waking up and watching Seahawks games. She's, it's hard here. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. Like last week we were talking, we're like, is it the early game? Oh, it's the worst time. Like afternoon game Seattle time are the worst time for us. But she's been a good sport. Been hanging up and talking with me through the games. It's been awesome. I've been really enjoying it.
Always fun to talk to a new fan of the sport.
That's my shout out.
Shout out to Birdfinger for chiming in live on the Twitch chat. We always appreciate it. Shout out to Tony for handling the money and making sure that Ross could get his pay so he can return to the show. We are the Hawkscast.net podcast. I am Sam. With me as always is Zeb and Ross again. Check us out on Twitter at Seahawks Podcast or Seahawks Forum. Go to Hawkscast.net and we wish you all a Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Hawks. Hawks country. Let's soar.